when I get upset, I go for a walk. When I get upset, I text my friend. When I get upset or a lot of things are going on, I take a bath, I take a shower, I iron, I clean the house, I drink a glass of wine, I listen to music, I sing, all those different things, coping strategies. So if somebody doesn't have a lot of those, or maybe they think, well, whenever I get really upset, I have to count to 10. Well, counting to 10 didn't work. It didn't work. So I need something else. And a lot of the research says, how do people learn about this? Well, they learn it from peers, they learn it from friends, they learn it from sometimes looking online, different things. So if my counting to 10 or my deep breathing doesn't work for me, it's like, I gotta do something because I can't deal with this. Well, let's try this. And one of the individuals, I keep saying, one of the individuals that I worked with or interviewed said, because I'm always interested, how does somebody, I don't understand the feeling of, okay, I'm going to take a razor, I'm going to take something, because that just seems like it would hurt. And so when asking individuals about this, like, yeah, when one of my friends, I said I was going through all this stuff, and one of my friends said, you know, I cut myself sometimes, and it helps me forget about it. I said, how did you do that? They said, well, the first time that I did it, it really hurt. And I couldn't imagine doing it. But then I noticed after all that pain, I was like, I didn't think about what I was thinking about. So it worked. And so in effect, it was an effective coping strategy for them when other things didn't work. So a risk factor of history of trauma. And trauma can be many different things. So family violence. It can be, when I first started looking at this, every person that I talked, not every person, but a lot of my friends and family members, and they're talking, oh, you're doing your dissertation. What's it about? It's about, it was called self-mutilation at the time, but non-suicidal self-injury. Oh, all those people, they've been sexually abused, right, or physically abused. It's like, well, not necessarily. Yes, that is a risk factor because traumatic activity can lead to that, but not everybody is that. And trauma can be many different things. It can be a loss of a close friend, loss of well, y'all know about trauma. Trauma's a lot of stuff. So there we go. We'll leave it at that. Family difficulties, and this is very similar to the history of trauma. So family difficulties can be family members fighting. One individual that talked to, she was on National Honor Society, and she was on swim team, so she would cut herself right in here where her swimsuit could cover it, that sort of thing. But the times that she would use it, she was very, very invested in her grades, wanted to make straight A's, did not believe in failure, did not believe in all that. So when she would do her homework, she couldn't concentrate because a lot of times she would hear her siblings fighting, her parents fighting, that sort of thing. So she would take a needle and thread and sew her fingers together and pull it out and watch it bleed for a little bit. And then she was okay. She could concentrate on her homework again. And so like Sydney was saying, an everyday thing or a build-up thing, it was something where it was her routine of, you know what, when there's a lot of stuff going on and I can't concentrate, this kind of centers me. Where I don't know if anybody in here does yoga. I'm not a yoga person. I don't know if I'm a meditation person either, but I'm a breathing person, which I know that doesn't make sense, but I like to practice breathing skills, that sort of, because it centers me. In that same way, this person had that centering by doing that. Okay, a risk factor, history of emotional personality disorders. So you're all familiar with the DSM and diagnosis. So non-suicidal self-injury was being taken into consideration for diagnosis when it went from the 4 TR to the 5, but it was not taken up as a diagnosis. I'm not going to get the exact wording right, but it's an issue for further study. So it's consideration for further research, but it is associated with different diagnoses. So bipolar disorder, borderline personality, some major depression, that sort of thing. So if you have other emotional personality disorders, there can be some of the self-injurious behaviors associated with that also. Risk factor, so presence of other self-harming activities. And so looking at self-injurious behaviors as a big umbrella of activities. Self-injurious activities can include drug and alcohol use, promiscuous behavior, risk-taking behavior, disordered eating or eating disorders, however you choose to say it, non-suicidal self-injury. All these different things fall under this umbrella of self-injurious behaviors. And so if someone has maybe some disordered eating, and then they're working through that, and maybe they move over to self-injury, or somebody has a history of drug or alcohol. Yes, go ahead.
Getting tattoos, is that considered?
Okay, yeah, and so that's a great question. I'm glad you brought that up, because so tattoos, piercing, heavy tattoos, heavy piercing. Some people practice suspension, inserting objects, that sort of thing. So, and that question always comes up: is that considered self-injurious behaviors? And this is not going to be the answer you want, I know, but it depends. It depends on the meaning behind the behavior. So I have one person that I worked with that they had cuts up and down their arms, and then they started to get, it was bothering them because they had scars and they didn't want scars. And so what they would do, the word is a tattooer. I don't know if that's correct or still the term. They described it to me as a tattooer instead of a tattoo artist. I was corrected in that. But they said, I knew somebody who did that, and I wanted a story of what was going on. And so this person had sleeves, but they could point to every tattoo they had and say, this is what's going on at this time. It's a story of my life. And depending on how much or how difficult it was, they would use a different gauge needle. Because the larger the needle, the more the pain, the discomfort, as opposed to the smaller the gauge needle. And so that was and so to answer your question, that depends part. Go ahead, yeah.
Has that person ever heard of German?
Well, great question, yeah. So there are other things to do, but for this person, that is what worked. They were very artistic. Now somebody who has, so that person, I would say, yes, a lot of tattoos, that would be considered self-injurious behavior, because their purpose in going to get the tattoo, they didn't just go to get a tattoo on on their birthday, Halloween, Christmas, Easter, whatever holiday they had. It was for a specific purpose of easing what was going on. Now, somebody who goes for their, I guess you have to be 18, correct? So for their 18th birthday and they want to have their name tattooed here, but then I wouldn't consider that self-injurious behavior. So, does that make sense what I'm saying? It's kind of the purpose behind the behavior. The same thing where if somebody, now this is going to date me quite a bit, but when I was in school, lighters, you would take a lighter and you would heat it up and then do this and put a smiley face on you. Now, I don't know, maybe I'm just rationalizing my own behavior, but I don't consider that self-injurious behaviors. But now if I did that, if I was going through a lot of stuff and I went, yeah, then I would consider that. And so somebody who does an eraser burn, and the question is always, what is it? How do we do, is this self-injurious, is it not? And how do you put it in one category or not, or another? And I guess my either lack of answering the question or my answer is, it depends on the meaning behind what they're doing. And to find out the meaning behind it, you have to understand that individual. Instead of, well, okay, this person has a cut here. Okay, well, tell me about that. Tell me what it was like. How did you decide to do that? And so that will, because again, going back to that first slide, what is it? Deliberate, socially unacceptable, destruction of one's body tissue, intentional, deliberate, unacceptable, self-inflicted bodily harm. So if someone says, if somebody has scrapes up and down their, that's not going to be a good example. I was going to say has scrapes up and down their arm, and they, play rough in the yard, and they get all sorts of things on them. Well, yeah, they have scrapes, and they know that it's happening. It's a part of doing it, but they're not doing it to destroy their own body. But if somebody goes marching through the woods and knows there's sticker bushes all over, and they do it because they can't sleep, and it's like, okay, I just want to walk through here, and then yes, it would be considered that. Yeah, go ahead.
One thing you asked me, my oldest son went into the army, went to Afghanistan, came back with post-traumatic stress, and he didn't have tattoos before he left, and now he keeps getting tattoos. Now I asked him what's going on, and he thinks they're cool, they're nice, and I just wonder, okay, they're cool and nice, but you need another one?
And it's kind of an understanding, a difference of opinion in what is acceptable, what is not, kind of what is the purpose of it.
I wonder, part of it is self-injury, the word is self-injury. Even though that may not be forefront in his mind, that's what I'm curious about.
And even knowing, what is it like? What, the purpose, is it because I like artwork on my body? Is it because, tattoos are a way of individualizing yourself. It can set to, different areas, where you've lived, your experiences. It can be a part of a group, and I know nothing about the military, other than I had somebody talk to me about, different military tattoos mean something for the group that you're in that sort of, but it would, again, just going back to what is the purpose of getting those tattoos? What is it fulfilling? And does it fit that, self-destructive? Did you have a question also?
Well, I was just going to say the socially unacceptable part, I guess that recognizes that in some cultures there are ritual or
Sure.
things that
Sure.
that are that change the tissue.
Sure.
Damage.
Yeah, there's some self-scarring behaviors in different cultures that are completely socially acceptable. That it's a part of this movement from an adolescent or a child to an adult. Now, would I consider that self-injurious behavior? I don't know, because it's part of that culture. It is acceptable. It's kind of what you do. Now, somebody who goes into their bedroom and can't sleep at night or gets in a big argument with a friend or a family member and then goes into there and has and cuts their arm or cuts their leg and that sort of thing and doesn't want to tell anybody about it or is nervous about it or feels guilty about it or something like that, then I would say, okay, there's something different going on there. All right. So bisexual or questioning sexual orientation, and I think that goes that in this time of and I don't want to say everybody starts in early adolescence, young adult or early adolescence, so 9, 10, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, but that's a part of understanding who you are and in questioning sexual identity, sexual orientation, gender roles, all that sort of thing. It can make you question. It can be difficult. It can sometimes, difficult, depending on how people react to you, understanding yourself. And so that can be definitely a risk factor also. So, and then these last two on here. So self-deprecating cognitive appraisal style. So that is a fancy word. Oh man. So basically it's easy for me to see what I do wrong. So if I do something right, maybe if I get straight A's and a B, and I think, oh man, I'm so dumb because I got a B. I can't believe that. That's terrible. So it's easy for me to see negative, and it's not easy for me to see the positive. Or I kind of weigh the scales that way a lot. Or strong negative emotionality is the other one on there. So things aren't bad; they're catastrophic. Or catastrophizing things. So if I lost my homework, it's the end of the world. That sort of thing. And again, this doesn't mean that somebody is going to participate in self-injurious behaviors. It's some risk factors. Now, if I look at all these, I think of every person that I've ever known that is 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, that maybe fit one of these or more of these. So is everybody, I think now this is just my own opinion, that self-injury is becoming more acceptable. And not necessarily more acceptable overall, but it's out there. It's more socially acceptable. There are groups in schools, so if you belong to this group, belong to this group, belong to this group, hey, this friend that I met, they cut themselves, well, I'm gonna try it out too. Okay, so we have a quick video here. This is it's an older video, some of y'all may have found it. I think it sums up self-injury, and I like it. I hope you like it too.
Stop. With your feet on the air, your head on the ground.
So I like that video because it's very simplistic and it explains, it kind of explains a little bit about it. Yeah, did you have a question? Oh, okay.
Can I share something?
Sure.
I worked with a girl one time who was 15 when I started working with her, and she had really difficult parents, high functioning, and this girl was was smart, attractive, and the funniest person I've ever worked with. We worked together about a year, and she was just doing so well. And so we ended treatment, and probably about 4 weeks later, someone at school caught her cutting her stomach. And so her parents called, and she came back into treatment, and she told me she'd been doing it the whole time she was in treatment with me.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think, yeah, good point that sometimes you don't know. I mean, sometimes it's easy to see scars and people are more forthright with them and outgoing with them. Sometimes they're, you would never know that that's going on.
That video